Well, welcome back. Thank you, Lindsey, for continuing this interview with us. And thank you so much for what you've shared already, talking about the setting the boundaries, I think is a really important thing. I remember, without there being any judgment on either side, but after the 2016 election, there were a group of people who were like, wow, I really need to self-care and self-love and all of that stuff. And it was really kind of centered around this capitalist notion of
Right.
purchasing things, buying, and all of that stuff. But I think the way that you describe making love real in this time is setting a boundary and recognizing that in the midst of a pandemic, if you didn't take care of you and your family, you weren't going to be able to take care of anybody else, whether that be your employees or whether that be, the community and beyond. And I think that that's a really special thing to celebrate. Um, if I can, if you're comfortable, what is your faith or spiritual background and where are you at today?
Okay. Um, it's a
And you
long
have to answer.
story. I know. Like, I will briefly discuss. I was born into a Baptist family, and from Oklahoma. It wasn't super strict Southern Baptist. I mean, we danced and drank, and we're still Scottish, and we still did all that stuff. And a very like loving family. And my mom loved to sing at church. And then when we moved to Arizona, we joined a Presbyterian church, and my mother was my Sunday school teacher. And I had a very, very close relationship with God. It was very like he was my imaginary friend. Like if my imaginary friend was like my grandpa, and I would talk to, I was the only child for 7 years. So he was a he in my mind. God was a he. And it was like this great grandpa character. And I would, talk to him and pray all the time. And then my mother, I had a million questions in Sunday school. When did the dinosaurs happen? When did just, there were all these things I was learning in school, and I was really trying to like piece together history and more. I really just wanted to understand like when the stories happened, and like what was the flood all about? Like, where's the boat? And like, how did they fit all the animals on there? I just like, I was so like such a little logical kid, I was like, I didn't really need the metaphors because I felt like I already had my close relationship with God. And so as I became a teenager and different things happened to me in my life, like most kids get mad at their parents, like I got really mad at God, and I got mad at the church structure that was getting in between that relationship and trying to like mediate it. And but I was really legitimately mad at this like grandpa character for letting bad things happen in the world. And I didn't nobody was really giving me the answers why. It was just like, oh, we'll just have faith. And I'm like, well, I need to understand why bad things happen. Like, it's super important to me. So the journey beyond teenage years has been to not necessarily deep dive, but definitely like look into other religions. I married a man who was raised Mormon. I had a lot of Jewish friends in high school, like a strange amount of Jewish friends in high school. I was like, all my friends are Jewish. And I learned about their religion. I've just been interested in all religion. And I think that as I've kind of mended that relationship, my very personal relationship with like spirit, I mean, the costume of the old man has come off, but that relationship is still there with God energy. And I don't have all the answers that I've wanted. Um, I'm working on it. And but I also have found like that there's so many truths that I find in so many different religions, and it really helps me to connect with people. It's almost like being bilingual in a way, like there's just so many different people, they speak a different language, and I can understand their value systems because of their religion, but there's this truth that runs through all of it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to use as paint to paint my picture of what reality is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I love the way that you say it's like being bilingual. it's a way in which to understand and then implement, the combination, the mixture or whatever.
And you can really see what people value when you do speak, like literally when you speak their language. You're like, oh, you talk about, the group in this way, or you talk about, like they always go back to the Eskimos have this many words for snow, whatever. And you realize like what people are focused on. And in religion, when you learn their, the history and the stories and the, the metaphors and the rules and the, you see what they value.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's the same. A lot of it is like they value taking care of people and being nice to people and it's like, oh, okay, that's there. At least everyone's trying to do that.
Right. At least hopefully everyone's trying to do that. So yeah, that is the goal. And so during COVID-19, your family and your business have had to make some major adjustments in all of that. And so how has your business been impacted? How has motherhood and mother to young children and also older children been impacted during this time?
I felt like a big shift in the beginning, especially because we closed the doors to the restaurant and we started doing the grocery service. And my kids, I pulled my kids out of school. And, but now, like, looking 6 months later, I don't feel like our lives have really changed that much, or as much as I feared in the beginning things would change, like the doom and gloom and like, we're going to be holed up in here with no electricity and no toilet paper. It's going to be so bad. And it's like, okay, it's not that crazy. And, there have been people that have died, and I know people that have died. And that has changed, that sense of, not seeing people's faces all the time. But my children are really resilient and my business is really resilient. And, our doors are open for takeout and delivery, and we're working on remodeling the patio so we can open up and kind of normalize again and create a space again that feels, as safe as it can be. And I'm homeschooling now, but I really only have my kids home 1 day a week with their friends, and that's been fun and challenging. But at the same time, like, I don't know, I don't feel as isolated as a lot of other people do. My community is pretty big, so I see a lot of people a lot of the time. I'm at risk. I have a big family. I have, like all my employees, and slowly but surely we've kind of like had friends over and their kids, and we're just trying to be careful.
And I think too, one of the things that we had talked about when we ran into each other at Changing Hands was how you see yourself in the larger universe, right? And I think that your energy and the way in which you connect to other humans, to other energies in the, we talked, a lot of stuff that day. It was great. I was like, I had some stuff that I had planned, and I was like, that was the best way to spend my afternoon. And to be able to do it in a bookstore, I was like, the only place better would be at your restaurant, but then you would be working, and that's not fun, because I know that you're like, and then I have some questions about your food then too, but yeah.
I love Changing Hands Bookstore, and I'm really trying, when you were talking about the self-care as consumerism, like I'm really, really that is a big shift that I've made, is really try to shift away from the Amazon deliveries, away from the big corporate. I mean, I used to take my kids to Target probably once a week. That does not happen anymore, and it's like, I realize if I'm going to order a book online, which I like to read books, it's like, no, I don't want to get it through Amazon. Like, there are other people that deserve my money, and the convenience of the delivery, it's just not worth it. I don't, I want to support these smaller businesses. And last night was so cool. I was looking up a book, and it said order on Amazon or order through Indie Books. And I clicked Indie Books and it said find a bookstore that, you know, could carry this. And like, there's changing hands. And I'm like, I just had to like take the red pill. I just had to click and that was as easy as that. And then they order the book and I can go pick it up there, you know? It's like, oh, like just making those little shifts can change our community and take care of these small businesses and these brick and mortar places that, you know, it's not just like your neighbor's business. It's also like these places that hold space and they're like, they make the physical world around us beautiful. That's a beautiful bookstore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And they have great beer too.
They're open.
And they're open. Yeah. I think, and that, I have two more questions. And this one is, you talk about the importance of local and the local supporting, you know, brick and mortar, that kind of stuff. You have made a change within your business itself. You were doing a lot of local stuff before, working with like Noble Bread and some other folks. But I've noticed in the last like 7 months that has become deeper. You're supporting local growers and all of that stuff. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Absolutely. The first thing when I was thinking about doing the grocery delivery, and something I'd wanted to do for a long time, was the CSA Pickup at Ollie Vaughn's. And a CSA is something I learned about when I lived in New York, because there's a lot of amazing farms out there. But what you do is you prepay for your farm basket every week. So you give the farmer money ahead of time, and then they know how much to grow, how much they're going to sell, and it really helps support local agriculture. That's what it stands for, community supported agriculture. So there's some great farms here, and one of them was Maya Farms, and I always wanted to do a pickup at Ollie Vaughn's. I'm like, it's a great way to promote our business. You know, if it was like a Tuesday, which is really slow, you know, she could just bring her truck in the back and we could do it, and people could come get coffee and cinnamon rolls and then pick up their farm basket, you know. And that got kind of like lost, you know, in the whole shuffle. And when the pandemic happened, I'm like, what's happening to the farmers, you know? And that's a great way to get local food and get it direct from the source and support somebody. And when I posted that, it was like everybody was like, sign me up. And I was like, oh my God, I have 800 DMs and I don't even know how to check them. And I was freaking out. And so we're just doing our fall. She closed for the summer because it was a really hot summer. We had no rain this year. Right. But we just opened up and we'll be doing our first pickup on the 10th. And so she's ready to, and you can find it on our website and all that. But it's really cool because we do you can order her basket and then you can also order stuff from us. And then we've paired with I want to say 8 other local people that make tortillas and oh my God, the sweetest lady, Corliss, she makes jams and she used to be a principal at the school and she's the sweetest lady ever. She makes the best jam and marmalade. And so we're selling her stuff and you can just buy it and drive through our back alleyway. We bring it out to your car and it's done. And it's I should have been doing this forever, you know? It's so cool. Now I know all these cool local people. And then the woman who makes the tortillas from Los Compadres was oh, I get the lard from a butcher, this female butcher that lives here. And I'm I want to go meet her. I want to see what she's doing. I always wanted to be a butcher.
Absolutely. And you have great dates.
Yeah.
And
yeah, from Monica and her Uriah's farm. And it's it's so cool. Yeah, we're running a date latte special this week with oat milk and cinnamon. And we made simple syrup with date, sugar from the farm. And so it's just fun. It made when you have these products and you're collaborating with people, it also sparks joy in cooking again, using these potatoes we've been doing breakfast burritos this week because we have these great tortillas and we have these great potatoes and they know each other because they share a kitchen. And it's all this community that I wanted to be a part of and felt like I never had time before has happened during this, it's really cool.
Yeah. So I think I liked what you said earlier in the interview is you recognize the trauma and the sadness that COVID-19 has brought. But you also are recognizing the other side of that, which is being able to enhance what you were already doing well and being able to empower women. It sounds like a lot with what, with your partnerships and stuff like that. And I think it's beautiful. I think finding the balance in both the sadness and the laughter and the pain and the love is a really important thing. And I love how you really do embody that for sure. I know I said I only have 2 more questions, but I lied. I have 2 more questions now, and I forever will. What is your most favorite thing at Ollie Vaughn's to make, or to, like, however you want to define that? What is your favorite thing at your restaurant?
Well, I actually was just telling someone the other day, and I found the perfect word for it, and I say the darling of the menu for me, the little darling of the menu is our croissants. And it's something that, I mean, you know, Baker Deb, she was the first baker that works there, and she really started developing the recipe. And it was something, you know, we wanted to do from the beginning. And I find my zen and passion in making that dough. It's a process that is, it's complicated and simple at the same time. And you can see the variation between the touch of one baker to another because it's hand done. It's a handmade product. So we're not using a big machine, which is called a sheeter. We're actually rolling it out every day by hand, you know. And I just think that it's when I'm doing it, when you know, when you talk about like Buddhists, like sweeping the floor or, you know, doing something you've done a million times, it's like, that's where this kind of, it's spiritual. It's a space, it's like, it's an art form. And it actually, when I hear other artists talk about their practice and their methods and their spirituality around their art, it's the one thing in my life that I can identify with, that I say, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. And like, I even watched the barbecue special the other day, and it was like this 84-year-old woman, and she's like a pit master. And she's like, I don't even know how hot my pits are. I just touch them with my hand. And I'm like, yep, I know just what she's talking about. Yeah. She like, I can tell how humid it is by what's happening with my dough. And I go, oh, I would never have noticed how humid. It's just, it has this way of being, of making you very present, which is so important spiritually. It's what happens during prayer. It's what happens during meditation. It just brings you into the present moment, and then you can be a channel. You can be, you know, and I'm sure you feel that with writing. You know, sometimes you're just doing it and you're talking to someone, or, you know, like I'm making it and I'm talking to someone else, but there are those moments where you feel like you're channeling, right? Yeah. And you're like, oh, I am like a conduit. Like it's coming straight through me, and I'm making this thing. And then you get to share it, which is so cool. And people sometimes don't even know how to like define that. Like they'll eat it or they'll read what you wrote or something, and they're like, oh, they're picking up all these other messages that weren't even from you, you know? And it's, so that's the darling of my menu.
Darling of the menu. I think the darling of the menu is the coffee, but yes, the croissants are as well. I love croissants for sure.
Is somebody else's darling, because we get our coffee from Matador, which they're amazing and they're darlings, and I love them. But yeah, that's our other local product that we've used from the very beginning, and they're the sweetest family and have always been so supportive, and like, I'm super grateful for them. When I wanted to do espresso, they like bought the machine for me and had me lease it from them, which like to own. And now I own it. Like they just like fronted it for me.
Wow.
And from the very beginning, they were so supportive, and something breaks down and they send a tech, and they're just awesome. I would never, and I love their coffee. So
yeah, indeed. Well, that is beautiful. So one final question, what do you hope for?
Well, I did just set an intention, and actually it's funny because I hoped for hope, which is really silly, but I set an intention. As you know, I'm like pretty into astrology, and we just recently had a new moon, And a new moon is a really good time to set an intention. And so I set an intention to bring creativity in my life and to move from this mode of survival that I think we've all been in to a mode of creativity. And I wanted my creativity to spark hope in other people. So the hope is hope. But yeah, I just wanted to, like I said, we're remodeling the patio, and I just wanted to enjoy doing that, enjoy being creative and not feel like, oh, now I got to run over here and find this chair, not make things like a burden, but make something an enjoyable creative process that, really can make people hopeful for what's going to happen, in the future, and opening up, people are ready to see each other again, and we may have a second wave, we may not, I don't know, but I want people to be hopeful.
Yeah. Well, that is beautiful. And thank you so very much for everything that you shared with us today, for taking a leap of faith and answering an email that was like, hey, by the way, would you be willing to do this? Because we ran into each other.
Your emails.
So I'm very grateful for that.
I could talk to you for a few hours? Sure.
Sure, we could totally set that up. I know. Well, what's great is our office administrator, she said, well, I set the recording time for an hour and a half because who knows how long it'll take, because the last interview I had was almost 2 hours. So it happens. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to sign off officially, but hang out for a couple minutes if you will. And thank you to the community that is paying attention through the Beatitudes Church YouTube channel, or wherever you're in from. If you're not in Phoenix, please make it a first stop priority to stop by Ollie Vaughn's. And it's on 16th and McDowell. And someday when we're able to spend time in the restaurant or whatever, she has wonderful, everything is got a story to it. Everything that's hanging on the wall, the mixing bowls, the plates, the cups, even the little, like you don't give numbers to people, or you may do that now, but at first you were giving little figurines until they all disappeared because everybody was stealing them.
Stealing them.
Well,
they were like Buddha. I mean, they stole a Buddha. I'm like, do you know what the karma is when you steal a little Buddha figurine? Who does that? That's crazy. But it was probably, like, the benefit of the doubt is it was probably a little kid, like, it was usually kids that took them. So
yeah, because they were playing with them and then forgot to give them back. So there you go. Yeah, sure.
Nice.
I'll use that excuse. I don't think I have mine hiding. No, I'm just kidding. Well, thank you everybody, and join us soon. Yeah. Thank you.